All right, in the fourth video of this unit, we're going to be talking about the Peloponnesian and the Persian Wars. And it's a case of where the Greeks fight together to defeat a opponent that they're incredibly outnumbered by in the Persian Empire. And, of course, the movie 300 is loosely based on the activities of one of the battles of that. And we'll talk more about that as we get there, too. But they fought together in those wars, and they showed, made Greece the dominant culture of the Mediterranean region. But it doesn't last forever. And so that's going to lead to a war between the two because they just can't get along. And eventually that will lead to the whole region being conquered by Alexander the Great and the Macedonians. But Alexander is our next video.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Unit 4, Part 4, the Persian and Peloponnesian Wars. We'll also talk a little bit about Athens and the Golden Age during this time period. Okay, so here's what we're doing. We're evaluating the significance of both the Persian and Peloponnesian Wars, and we're characterizing the life in Athens during the Golden Age when Pericles was the ruler. Okay, so how do the Persian Wars start? Well, the Persians had conquered a colony called Ionia. Now, if you remember how the Phoenicians used to make their purple cloth out of the snail guts, well, the Ionians had taken over that trade, and they were a colony of Athens. And the Persians conquered them in 546 BC, and the Ionians hated the Persians. And they considered them to be barbarians, less than them. And so in 499, the Ionians revolt, and Athens sent them help. Well, the bottom line is that the Persian army destroyed the revolt, and Darius I, the emperor of the Persians, swore he would get revenge on Athens. So that sort of sets up the First Persian War. Okay. So the first battle is actually going to take place at a landing zone called Marathon. It's a plain that is about 25 miles north of Athens. And so the Persian ships land there, and they're set up on the beach, and they start getting out all their horses and their military, and they're ready to fight. And the Greeks are surrounding them up on the hilltops above the beach. And so the Persians outnumbered the Greeks 20,000 to 10,000, so 2 to 1. And they're just sitting down on the beach, and they're waiting for the Greeks to attack. But here's the thing: they kept waiting and waiting, and the Greeks did nothing. So finally, the Persians say, "Well, enough of this. We're just going to get back on our ships, and we're going to attack Athens." And so when they start loading up the ships with their cavalry, the Athenians attack, and they use the terrain and the hilltops to their side to come in on both sides of the Persians and overwhelm them. And basically, it winds up killing 6,400 Persians, and the Greeks only lose 192 men. That is a beatdown pretty much on any level. So now the scary part is that Athens was thinking that they were going to lose. And so when they won, some of the ships that were containing the cavalry and some other parts of the Persian army were already out at sea. And so Athens, the Athenian soldiers were afraid that the city would surrender. So they got their fastest runner, a guy named Phidippides, to run the nearly 26 miles to Athens. He rushes into the city, and he says, "Rejoice, we conquer," and he dies. So we now run the marathon in honor of his race to tell Athens that they had won. And personally, I think it should be called the New York City Phidippides, instead of the marathon. But that's just me. Okay. So, of course, the Persians were not done. Xerxes, who was Darius' son and now in charge of the Persian Empire due to Darius' death, was not happy about the loss at Marathon. So he put together an army of 200,000 soldiers. Now, in the movie The 300, Darius looks like this on the bottom, but he probably looked a lot more like the ruler on the top. So again, this is real. This is not so real. Now, he had a huge fleet to supply his army. And so the Greeks did what they always did in a time when they were worried about being invaded or anything else. They went to the oracle, because you should always go to a drugged up teenage girl and ask her what to do before a big battle. And so the girl said that a wooden wall would defeat the Persians. And so after a lot of head scratching and everything else, the Greeks decided that the wooden wall was a navy. They were going to build ships. But they needed time to build the ships. So the Persian army needed to be held up. And so the king of Sparta, Leonidas, and by the way, by this time it wasn't just Athens. All the Greek city-states decided that they needed to come together and unite to fight against the Persians, because if they defeated one city-state, they would probably take them all. And so King Leonidas decided he would take 300 of his best soldiers and then another 7,000 Greeks, and he would hold them up at a mountain pass called Thermopylae. Now, Leonidas and his army hold them up for several days. And you know that whole "this is Sparta" thing is where we get this whole idea. And the truth is that they didn't do near as much fighting as they did in the movie, but they did hold them up. And eventually they are betrayed by one of their own soldiers, who tells the Persians about a mountain pass which allows their archers to get above them. And Leonidas realizes that they're going to lose, and so he sends the rest of the Greek soldiers off, and he and his 300 Spartans stay there, and each of them dies, giving up their lives to sort of, further the cause. Plus, it was against Spartan law to surrender anyhow, and he holds them up long enough. So now, this gave the Greek navy the time that they needed. And the leader of the Greeks in Athens had some other ideas too. And you never know when you're going to run into some tough Spartan warriors. It could be in a Target store where we are posing and doing our thing. This is Target! Right? Okay. Alright. So, after the Persians finally defeated Leonidas, they start heading towards Athens. And the Athenian general, Themistocles, had said that his fleet could defeat them. So what he did is he had the entire city of Athens evacuated. So the Persians got there, and if you're ready to conquer someone and no one's there, well, that's no fun, right? It's no fun to conquer it when no one's there. And so they look out onto the Strait of Salamis, out on the ocean, and the Greeks are basically standing out there going, blah, 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 blah. And so the Persians are like, we're going to get you. And Xerxes has his crown and his throne all put up on a hillside to watch this sea battle, this epic sea battle. The only problem is that the Greeks have gotten all of their ships. They have battering rams on them, and they just crash right into the Persian ships. Now, as soon as they get the ones who don't sink to the bottom of the Straits of Salamis and get to the shore are going to be taken out at the Battle of Plataea by the rest of the Spartan army and a combination of other Greek city-states. So here's the deal. This is what the Battle of Salamis looked like, and the Greeks won. The smaller, faster Greek ships could maneuver much faster in the small body of water. So now, here's what I'd like for you to do. Fill in who fought against each other in the Persian War on the chart below. So on the top line, it should say Sparta and Athens versus the Persians. And the winner, the Greeks, Sparta and Athens. Okay, so what happens after this war? Well, after this war, now the Persians are not the dominant group anymore. So the culture that is going to be spread all throughout the Mediterranean region is that of the Greeks. And there's a period between this war, the Persian Wars, and the Peloponnesian War that we call the Golden Age. And the reason is in Athens, there are remarkable accomplishments in art and science and architecture and philosophy and playwriting. It is an amazing time. Some of the greatest minds ever are there in Athens while all of this is going on. Now, the leader of Athens during this Golden Age was a guy named Pericles. And one of the things he does that's going to cause problems later on is he starts to rebuild the city. Because when the Persian army came in and found no one, they started burning it down and destroying the city. So you have to rebuild. One of the things, here he is, look at him celebrating. Hey, I'm Pericles, I'm awesome, just ask me. So he rebuilds the city. And one of the things he rebuilds is the Parthenon. So, Athens spent a huge amount of money on public buildings during this time. Their individual homes were simple, and they would work in the morning, and then you would go to the gym in the afternoon. Remember, they had slaves to do the heavy work. But slaves filled all jobs. Some slaves were teachers, some slaves did manual labor, some slaves played music for a living. So, many different roles of the slave. Now, what about Athenian women during the Golden Age? Well, remember how we said women had a lot of freedom in Sparta? The exact opposite was true of Athenian women. They had very little freedom. Now, most women learned to read and write, but they did that on their own. And some participated in festivals. But an Athenian female was not supposed to go out without a male escort or her face covered. So the Greeks definitely, in terms of the Athenians, put many more restrictions on women than did Sparta. Now, some women broke through this barrier. One was a free foreign woman. She was not considered a citizen, obviously, because she was a woman and she was a foreigner. Her name was Aspasia, and she was known for being not only beautiful, but also very intelligent. And she was sort of like the Dear Abby of her day. And so how did the Greeks treat Aspasia? They put her on trial for being disloyal to the gods. It was only after Pericles and Socrates spoke on her behalf that she was freed. And the truth is that then Pericles asked her to marry him. Alright, so all of this is leading us to the period that's known as the Peloponnesian War. Now, the alliance of city-states that got together during the Persian Wars was called the Delian League, named after the island of Delos, where they stored all their money. And they all paid dues to Athens. The unfortunate part is that after the war, Athens used the funds to rebuild Athens, including building the Parthenon. Alright, now this made the other city-states mad, but especially Sparta. They formed the Anti-Athens League. I feel like I'm watching Little Rascals and you have the He-Man Woman Haters Club. But it was the Anti-Athens Alliance. Now, basically the two city-states are at war for 27 years. Athens holds an advantage at sea, and Sparta has the advantage on land. And Athens actually builds a wall all the way around the city and all the way down to their port. And then Sparta does something unbelievable. They give the Persians back the colony Ionia that had started the whole Persian War. And in return, the Persians give them a fleet of ships. So, basically what happens is two huge events will lead to Athens' downfall. The first is a plague. We're not sure exactly what it was. Probably bubonic hits the city-state of Athens. 1/3 of their population is killed, including Pericles. And then they come out of a huge storm, and the Spartans are waiting there with their new ships, and they destroy the Athenian fleet. The Athenians are forced to surrender. So, the bottom line is, after all of this, both city-states are weakened terribly. And it certainly slowed many cultural advancements that had been made during the Golden Age. Unemployment became high, and so many of the soldiers leave to become paid soldiers, which are called mercenaries. And eventually, the Greek city-states will lose self-rule due to being weakened politically and militarily by all these wars. And Macedonia with Alexander the Great are going to be coming. Okay, so on your notes, I want you to again fill in who fought who in the Peloponnesian War. That's right here. So you put down that Sparta versus Athens, and Sparta was the winner. And then you need to explain the impact of the wars on Greece, both economically, culturally, and politically. Now keep in mind that the Persian Wars established Greece as the dominant economy, certainly gave them a great deal of freedom, and spread their culture all throughout the region. But the Peloponnesian Wars destroyed a lot of that. It weakened their militaries, weakened their political side, and certainly had a huge drain on their economy. Okay, so what are the big ideas of this video? The first one is that the Persian Wars established Greece and Athens as the dominant cultures of the region. The second is the Golden Age saw incredible progress for Athens and Western culture. And then the third item is the Peloponnesian War slowed cultural development and weakened the Greeks' political and military power. Okay, please keep up with your notes and your journals, and I hope that you enjoyed the video.